What's up guys, this is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and since I finished with the Soda Street Fighter figure reviews, I was asked to do the NECA Street Fighter figures again in HD, so here they are. Now for these NECA figures, I only have the Player 1 versions and the SDCC Guile Charlie variant, so I can't show you all the different color variants because they canceled the line and I decided I didn't want to get color variants when I only had 4 or 5 figures or 6 figures. So just the Player 1s, but it's all the same, just repaints, so it should suffice, I hope. This is RYU, obviously. I think these are pretty good figures. You know, a lot of people don't like the NECAs, or some people really love them. Personally, I like them. He stands just under 7 inches tall, really close to 7 inches, so they're in a larger scale than the Soda figures, as NECA figures usually are in the 7-inch scale. So they're a little bigger, they won't fit in size-wise, but they're still really sweet. The sculpt is probably the best thing going for these guys. The articulation's pretty good, but the sculpt is really nice. If you look, he's almost identical to the in-game for Street Fighter 4, I should mention. These are specific to Street Fighter 4, that's why they have the blockier builds, really stocky looking, square-ish design, but still really cool. Now, here's the thing. These figures have decent paint. Sometimes it's really good, sometimes it's really bad. If you look at the skin, there's great shading throughout all of the skin. There's great airbrushing on the clothes even too, but then you look at the details, like underneath his headband, there's a black line on his head. His, the tie for his gi is all messed up. They didn't use a good paint on this, it came right off. And I didn't exactly play with these things, I pretty much just got them and put them away. The paint on the hands is pretty bad. There's red all over the fingers. There's a lot of problems like that. The feet have shading, but it's questionable at best. So sometimes the paint's good, sometimes it's bad. On the shelf it'll look fine, but if you get too close, you'll start to see a lot of problems with the details. As far as articulation goes, the head is on a ball peg. It's kind of limited in the side to side, just the way it fits on the neck so nicely. It looks great that way, but it does limit the articulation. You're going to mostly get the side to side here, like turning, not rocking side to side, and almost no up and a little bit of down. But it should be enough to get him in some nice poses. It's still sufficient, I think. The shoulders have the butterfly joints, so they rock forward and backwards, and then they're on a ball disc, which moves independently, of course. Then it has a bicep swivel, double jointed elbow. Now here's where I said the articulation's only okay. Even though it's a double jointed elbow, you still just get slightly more than 90. They're really blocky, and they didn't account for that. So you don't get a huge range of motion still. You have a peg swivel for the wrist, and it has a pivot. You also get alternate hands, that's why I call it a peg swivel. You have 2 of the open hands for shooting fireballs, and then 2 fist hands as well, and they just peg in. You have an ab crunch, which works fairly well. The gi is soft enough to allow him to bend. You can see there's really nice musculature on the figure. Goes back as well. Not quite as far, but it still does go back, so that's okay. Has a waist twist. T-jointed hips, very similar to the DC Universe Classic style, so they swing forward and backward. Then they have a sideways joint as well. The thigh swivel cut joint right there. Double jointed knees. Again, they're really blocky. They get a better range of motion than the elbows, but don't expect them to look great. They're really blocky, but still not bad. There is a swivel for the shin at the bottom of the pants, an ankle pivot or hinge, an ankle rocker, which is always appreciated, and a toe joint. The good thing about these figures is the joints are all tight enough. Now this guy's hips started to get a little bit loose, but the foot joints are tight enough to where if you wanted to stand him up on just those toes, you could do it. I'm not going to do it here because I have the backdrop, and it probably won't be able to balance him that well on a cloth surface, but you can do it. I've done it plenty of times. You can stand him just on the toes on 1 foot alone. If you wanted to stand him like that, it can be done. So even though these guys are big and bulky, the joints support the weight, and it does work out very well. Swap out a hand real quick. They pop out real easy. They're not too loose that it's going to be a problem, but they do pop out easy enough to where you don't have to worry about breaking anything, at least on any of mine. I've never had any trouble. So as you can see, it's just a really nice looking figure, and if you're a Street Fighter fan, Street Fighter 4 in particular, or RYU, I think you're going to like this figure, and I do recommend it. So there it is, guys. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the rest of the Street Fighter 4 figure reviews, and in the meantime, keep collecting.